You mentioned earlier the one time that the women correspondents banded together to fight. General Westmoreland was trying to get them banned from the battlefield, or
Right.
so
Reimposed, yeah.
they couldn't go. They couldn't stay
Yeah.
overnight. So basically, they couldn't go. Why is it that they came together that one time and not again? I mean, it just seems like they're all under siege. Why wouldn't they be looking to each other for comfort and support?
Okay. First of all, I can't tell you how few were actively journalists. Okay. Secondly, there were so many men. They were scrambling to make money. These are women who were not staff. They did not have a paycheck. They had to cover everything, their equipment, everything. And they all, the ones I've interviewed, Urati, in fact, I quote saying it was very lonely. The opportunity in a way wasn't there. And secondly, they were spending so much time just working. So that's the answer. But there were very few women. I mean, most of the time I was in Cambodia, there was no other woman journalist with me. There was one photojournalist, and that was it.
Okay, let me look. There are some questions here that sort of relate to that. Actually, I think this came from Patty. Could you talk about the personal cost? In the book, you talk about how Kathy had turned on Horst Foss when she accepted an award and alienated a lot of supporters.
That came about in part because of all of the women, she faced the biggest challenges. She was out in the field all the time. Don McCullen, for instance, a wonderful man, great photographer, he said he just didn't like seeing her out there and told her women didn't belong there. She was accused of being coarse, using vulgar language. She learned her English from the Marines, and fuck you in Parisian is not cute all the time. And men went behind her back and tried to get rid of her. They petitioned the US military, and she almost lost her press credentials and would have had to leave. She scrambled and got it. But after that, I mean, she was not an easy personality to begin with, but then it had very hard time telling enemy from friend. And she suffered, as did Kate, from serious PTSD. And that happened the rest of her life. She wrote poetically about it in her journals and in some interviews, but she refused help. So yes, it was hard, and the sacrifice they made were tremendous. Neither Kate nor Katrine ever found a life partner. Kate, at the end of the war, she should have been this great Kate Webb legend. She should have been able to name her ticket in journalism. But she quit soon after the war because her boss demanded that she become his mistress. And she didn't go back to journalism for 10 years. It was hard.
Yeah. And PTSD was not a thing. It wasn't recognized at that point. So how would that sort of behavior be characterized? What was it called? And was it called something different if it was a woman versus a man?
Well, versus a man, he would be difficult. A woman was a drunk or a slut. Interviewing their former colleagues, I could guess what the first things they would tell me. Did you realize that Kate was a drunk? Did I realize how promiscuous Katrine was? And did I know the problems with Frankie's book? And I have to tell you, so in fact, I interviewed, just to put that to bed, I interviewed Frederick Logevall, the Harvard professor, Pulitzer Prize winning historian of the Vietnam War, who said the book is of seminal importance, and it's not fair to judge it by what we know in 2021, that she should not, the book and Frankie should not have been subjected to this. And I'm sure if her name had been Frank Fitzgerald, it would have had a completely different reaction.
Yeah, that reminds me. So you had mentioned to me a while ago that you said, to this day, Frankie's colleagues don't think she deserved the Pulitzer. And so I looked up some of the things that were said, uh, and academics were, some of them were absolutely scathing. She didn't speak the language. She couldn't read the literature. She relied on Western thinkers to form her conclusions. She got the Vietnamese character all wrong. And yeah, I wondered, did anybody ever go after the guy's books in the same way?
No, and the other thing I say in the book is that she was the only one who answered that question. No one else. First of all, she recognized the question, and then she tried to answer it. And you did not have an academic book or a journalist, and she was praised for doing that. That she bridged the gap. And John Fairbanks, who's the dean of all studies Asian China, he said a decade later that the lack of understanding, the academic lack of understanding during the war was their Pearl Harbor. So it was recognized that she was first, she tried, she made this amazing, noble effort. And voila, thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, questions are piling up here. Let me get one of the early ones. Question from Paula Dwyer. Hi, Elizabeth. If male journalists gave women war correspondents the cold shoulder, how did the troops and the military officers treat them? Did they have to work 10 times as hard as their male colleagues to get a story?
That's very interesting, Paula. Thank you. When the woman got to the field, the soldiers loved her. I mean, it's classic. The grunts in the field, oh my God, there's a woman. I mean, I quote one guy saying, I wrote home to say, believe it or not, a French woman slept in my tent last night. I mean, they really enjoyed. They asked everybody questions. You get a little higher, and then there are problems. Like there are too many. Let me do. The first thing that came to mind was Frances Fitzgerald got permission to go on a flight down south. She had her press card, and the commander did not believe that this young woman was a journalist, despite the press card, or that she was writing for the New York Times Magazine. And in Nowhere, Vietnam, he patched through all the way to the New York Times office so that he personally could be told that yes, she was legitimate and she had an assignment. I mean, this this is beyond belief. And Kate kept her hair short just so that she could sort of blend in, and from a distance she would look like a man. So the higher up you go, the more likely that you are going to have some problems. The low level, the soldiers in the field, no, they thought it was cool and couldn't believe that you'd do it. And why in the world are you wasting your life doing this? I mean, Kate was asked routinely, why are you doing this? Why are you risking your life?
Right. Okay. Several questions coming in about why these three women and not some other women: Gloria Emerson, Liz Trotta, Silvana Foa.
Mm-hmm. And as I tried to say at the beginning, these are the women who not only broke through the window, but made these very recognizable accomplishments. And I say in there, in no way does that mean there weren't others. Gloria Emerson, after Kate and Frankie and Katrine broke through, then Gloria lobbied from her job in Paris as a fashion reporter to go to Saigon for the New York Times. And so your equations, it was great, but these three were standouts on all levels. The risk taking, the cracking, etc. Liz Trotta, NBC, great reporter, sent in and out, in and out, in and out. In no way does it denigrate them. And Silvana's my old buddy, and she helped me a lot putting this book together.
Good.